and don't rush the process and get freaking creative. Get creative. They're not going to pay attention to you if you're saying exactly the same thing as the 20 other brokers that just called them that day, right?
Right.
And one of the ways to do that is you do your research, you stand out by showing them that you care. So I'm a big advocate of slow, meaningful, thoughtful prospecting. I am not an advocate for make 100 cold calls, say the same thing, hopefully a fish will bite. No.
I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Sales-CRM. If you haven't heard about Sales-CRM, they've been a sponsor of ours for about 4.5 months now, and they are honestly the premier CRM for freight brokers and sales agent teams. It's pretty unique to have a specific product for freight brokers that can house all of your follow-ups, all your shipper prospecting. I know when I was a broker, I did have a hard time, following up and being able to kind of manage my leads through some of those traditional CRM platforms. So when I heard about Sales-CRM, Josh showed it to me probably over a year ago, and I've been a big advocate for what they're doing since then. And that's why they're a sponsor of ours. And I just want to thank them again for being a sponsor. If you guys haven't checked them out, make sure you guys do. Links in the description, but you can also check them out, sales-crm.com. You can try it free for 14 days. Go there, check it out. No credit card needed. Welcome back to the ThinkFreight Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Wardeen, and it's my pleasure to have Krystina Booker. She's the founder and CEO of Booker Transport Solutions. Krystina, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Like I was saying earlier, I'm so glad that we found the time to do this.
Me too. I'm really thrilled to have you here. We've connected a couple times offline, and you've got a really cool background, and I'd love to kind of share that kind of with the audience. I think what you're building with Booker is really, really unique, and kind of taking that more boutique approach. I think you guys are really cool. So I want to dive into kind of who you are, kind of your background, how you initially got into the freight industry, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll start how I got into it. I mean, I was a young kid, graduated college, wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. I graduated with this business degree, had no plans for it. I went to school because I was told it was the right thing to do, and I'm glad I did it, but again, didn't have a plan. So, bills came knocking on the door, and I said, what am I going to do? Well, let's start looking for jobs. And Chattanooga is a logistics hub. There's a lot of freight brokerages here, more now than there were back then. And that was back in 2017, but still quite a bit. So, I started interviewing around. I interviewed at Coyote, and Steam Logistics here in Chattanooga was just the one that was like, oh, this is crazy. I love the environment, the feeling. So started with them and was there for about a year and a half. And then I wanted to dive a little bit deeper. So I started with a cradle to grave brokerage. It was kind of a startup at the time. I don't even think they were doing $1 million when I started. And then by the time I left, they were like $150 million company. So, just going through that growth and everything was, interesting. It was a great experience. So that's kind of a little bit about my background. Feel free to ask me any questions and I can elaborate.
Yeah, for sure. So how long were you at that startup brokerage?
About 6.5 years.
Okay. So you were there probably, it sounds like probably a good majority of your brokerage career.
Oh yeah. Most of my brokerage career, about 90% of it.
So what kept you there for so long? And then what made you, what made you stay for so long? And then what were some of your, kind of your niches, or what were some of your specificities when you were moving freight with them?
Yeah. I mean, from the beginning, it was a learning experience. There was no training or anything that I went through. It was kind of a wild, it was a jungle, right? And you figure it out as you go. I didn't have a book of business. Obviously, I had a non-solicit from the company before. And so had to start fresh, had to learn as I go. And then just watching myself grow, me and my teams. And I eventually became like a pod leader and made my first hire. So I think just being rooted in that kept me there for as long as I was there for,
Yeah.
and the customers as well. One of my customers was one of the first ones that I got, and they were with me until I left. So that's part of it too. So I think that that's just the roots, kind of kept
Yeah.
me grounded there. And then I would say, I'm sorry, what was your other question?
And then what kind of like what were your kind of your niches when you were there? Like, did you move a lot of drive-in freight? Were you doing more specific like medical stuff? Like, what was your specific kind of like niche, or were you just kind of moving a lot of different freight?
I was moving a lot of volume, to be honest. And one of the first customers was an enterprise billion-dollar company. That was back in 2018 when the market was at a time where it was going through a transition. And I did hell of a lot of prospecting, and that was
Yeah.
something that lined up for me. So just a lot of volume. I started with dry vans and kind of stuck to that niche, but it was not only dry van, it was like specialty, glass in a dry van. It was,
Mm.
sensitive freight, extremely time sensitive, just in time. So that's kind of where it started, and then it grew into more of like an expedited, team service, calling me at 7 p.m. for a pickup at 7:30 type deal. So that's
No,
where that's where I shine best at.
you know, having an enterprise customer as your first customer is like kind of a hell of a big deal. Like, how the hell did you land that? That's awesome.
I don't even know. I remember talking to like a warehouse manager, and we just hit it off, And
Yeah.
at the end of the conversation, I think I was like, "So when's my first load?" And he's like, "No, no, no, honey." He's like, "I'm gonna have to get you in touch with corporate, and they're in California. You're talking to somebody in Pennsylvania." So, uh, and then it just kind of started the snowball from there. And I was like, "Shoot, well, my first load's not going to be for a while." But my team members were like, "This is a big deal. Be a little patient, because." My colleagues were getting, loads from their first calls. And I think once I learned what the corporate structure was like, what getting an enterprise shipper was like, then I realized, okay, there's a lot of patience that goes into it before you get your first shipment, your
Right.
first quote. So, I went through that corporate thing. I stayed with it. I stayed persistent. I did not give up. It all rooted back from that first great conversation with the warehouse manager. I was like, he said, y'all need help. I know that you're not open to a new broker right now, but I can help him. And then that's exactly how I got in, was to actually work with that warehouse manager for that Pennsylvania warehouse. And then we grew from there. We were invited to an RFP. We won more lanes based on our service, and it just grew.
That's really awesome. So I want to dive into that just a little bit more. So like a lot of, and I remember this when I was at TQL and in other brokerages, we tend to look at, hey, we need to talk to the the manager, the vice president of supply chain, but it's really it doesn't come down to titles, right? Like you said, you got in with the warehouse manager, you had a good conversation. He said he needed some help, and even though they weren't bringing on new brokers, you were able to kind of show him that you were going to be different, or at least appeared to be different, and obviously showed him through the experience that he had after giving you some loads, getting through the corporate experience, and then just working with him for a while. You built that trust, you built that relationship, and I think that's kind of where a lot of brokers kind of sometimes I think forget that you can start at the lower level, the warehouse manager, the yard managers who know what the exact problems are, because the corporate guys may not understand what issues the warehouse manager is facing on a day to day, and where there are opportunities for a broker or a new transportation partner to come in and help.
Exactly. And I mean, you use that as a starting point. It's not, Your
Yeah.
end goal may not be, I just want to run one load for this warehouse manager. Your end goal may be, hey, I want to run freight for every single location for this company.
Right.
But you have to break that down into steps. And that's how you tackle an enterprise shipper is you realize that it's going to be a lengthy process. A lot of people will say, I'd rather stick to the mom and pops, but then they hit a freight recession like this, and it's
Yep.
really the enterprise shippers or the bigger fish that are going to get a broker or a brokerage kind of through that market and on the other side. So, I'm a big advocate for going after the big fish. I
Yeah.
really,
No, and that's fantastic. I'll say this is when I was a broker, I specialized in going after the medium sized companies because they felt like you said the mom and pops. When you start to deal with freight recessions, it can be if all you're dealing with is small customers, it can be you can start to really feel that pain. When you're dealing with enterprise customers, as long as you have a really good relationship and provide a good value and good service to them, they'll keep running with you, even if you're a little bit higher with your rates. It's all about service for a lot of these shippers. And what I found was a lot of these mid-sized customers was, for at least for me, they felt more recession proof than those mom and pops, but they were also easier to get in with than the enterprise. And it also was a shorter cycle where, it may take 3 to 6 months, maybe even a year to get in with an enterprise shipper or before you move your first load. But, I could get in with a mid-sized customer in 3 weeks to 9 weeks and get two or three mid-sized customers and be able to really start moving some volume there too. So I think there's a lot of good approaches in how you can go after the mid-sized fish and the big fish, and just kind of tackling all those different titles from the lower level all the way up, and just kind of making those not making those generalizations that warehouse manager can't make some of those decisions, even if they say, hey, I'm not the one who does this. A lot of times they have the decision power. So it's just kind of about being persistent and staying, like we were talking about before we jumped on, staying ahead and looking at the big picture of everything.
exactly. And I'm so glad you brought up value, because if you don't have that at the back of your mind in every conversation of what value can I bring to this person that I'm talking about, what questions can I ask to find out what value is possible there, then, from my experience, your conversations tend to go a little bit south. If all you have on your
Yeah,
mind is profit, 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 well, in order to get to the profit, you have to create and generate value for yourself. And it starts with a conversation and asking the right questions. But I also wanted to touch on the fact that I believe your book of business should also be not, set in stone of, okay, I'm an enterprise shipper
right.
broker. I've had the most success with breaking that out a little bit. Enterprise shippers tend to find me the most, and we tend to have more of a symbiotic relationship there. The most I can bring them the most value I found,
Yeah,
but a lot of my book of business is fragmented in a point where I do have my mom and pops, I do have my mid-sized shippers, and of course my enterprise. So
absolutely.
that's I found to be a good balance.
Now, I want to dive into something a little bit different because, we've kind of been talking more about, the before your background and diving into enterprise shippers, but I want to dive into why you decided to leave your last brokerage and really start your own. As, we're kind of in the middle of this freight recession. Some people will probably call you crazy. You
I
and I
was
have
called
talked.
crazy. Yeah.
I'm sure. No, I'm sure you were. And you and I have talked before. I said I think there's no better time to start a brokerage than now because you can kind of get all of those processes in place. You can get your carrier base up. You can really start to show that value and service to your customers while the market is low and while it's down. But why did you make that jump? Why did you decide to start your own brokerage in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was always a goal to be a business owner, right? And
Mm,
one of the questions that came up was, okay, well, which route do I want to take? Do I want to become an agent and still have that independence, or do I want to start fresh? Do I want to start the hard way?
right.
And I wasn't so much considering the recession and the market as I was my long-term goal. And what others may have seen as a bad time, I saw as an opportunity. And like you said, I mean, my opinion is that a strong structure, a strong foundation has to be built in order for growth and for success to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
I know a lot of startup brokerages don't have that strong foundation because it's hard to build it, right? But again, a lot of startup brokerages start when the market is an all-time high, so they're doing a lot of catch up. There's a lot of freight coming in and it's very reactive, right? So I
Right.
found an opportunity to be proactive. I found an opportunity to figure out my plan, to confirm my long term goal, and to create structures and a foundation that I will build on for the rest of my career, not just with this business, but hopefully another business down the road. So that's one of the reasons, as a human being, I'm very proactive. So I looked at all the negatives of starting your own brokerage. I compared it with, the positives of an agent model type deal. And I compared it even with going to another W-2. So,
Right.
um, because I'm trying to not only chase money, I'm chasing the vision. So for me, it was more of this is the right thing to do. And, the reason I started in this environment is because the carrier base, right? The factoring, all the issues that would come up, like for every new brokerage does, I'm able to combat them with the market. Essentially, although it's not on our side, it is for a newer broker.
Yeah. No, I think that that's a good reason to go out and start your own brokerage. And you touched on something that I like to talk about because I think it's really interesting is being an agent versus kind of going out and building your own brokerage. Can you talk about a little bit maybe why you decided to go out and do this kind of the harder way as opposed to maybe becoming an agent and kind of building that way?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the agent model is a great model. There's a lot of positives, there's a lot of benefits, and there's some risk, but not as much risk as starting your own brokerage. But then again, you
Right.
have to look at your long term goal. If I were in it just to, take my customers and make bukus of money, I think I would have gone to the agent side because I mean, that's more independence. That's kind of what you're seeking. More power over your decisions, over your customers, but without, you know, the capital and the risk issues that come along with starting your own brokerage. But to me,
Right.
I'm trying to make a ripple in the industry. And I want to get away from the W-2 model as much as possible. Right. And that's kind of what my thinking was, when I'm doing my hiring, when I'm creating this business, one of my long-term goals is I want to create entrepreneurs. I don't want to
Mm.
create working bees. I've seen how that works out. I've seen the toxicity. I've seen how far away a carrier rep or an account rep is from leadership, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to create I don't want to create that environment. I want to create a mentorship type of business. So that's my long-term goal. And the only way that it made sense is if I get in the weeds. I do it the hard way. I show people that it can be done, and then hopefully down the road, I'm that mentor. I'm that person that they seek that I wish I had when starting this. So that's one of my main reasons.
What kind of challenges, do new brokers face? I'm sure that it's tougher right now more than ever to get factoring companies to agree to factor invoices. I'm sure having a newer MC causes issues because of freight and theft issues that are going on. How are some of those issues, for you guys, and how do you kind of mitigate those as a new brokerage?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges I ran into is you're right, factoring companies not wanting to take that risk on a new broker, and that's
Mm.
fair, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of fraud in the industry. The way that I'm able to combat that is just the conversations with carriers of, working directly with owner operators and the owners of the trucking companies, which a lot of them are open to different routes of payment, not just a
Yeah.
factoring company. Just depends on the carrier, right? And I don't let it discourage me if I have a shipment and a carrier doesn't want to run it because of a factoring company. I think of it as, all right, so, I get another call from a different trucking company. They're able to work with me. It just kind of creates a better balance. So I just keep going. I work extra hard to get that shipment covered. And then I build on those relationships with the carriers and we kind of grow together. I give them access to the other opportunities I have, if we run a shipment and I pay them direct. So I would say that um, there are other avenues that you can take if a factoring company does not want to work with you. You just have to do a little bit more brainstorming and a little bit
Yeah.
more work.
A lot of people, and you've said it too, is building relationships, especially with your carriers. What are some of those ways to best build those relationships, and how can you kind of start, helping them and helping yourself to moving freight with them on a more consistent basis? Because this is something that a lot of people complain about, but also, I mean, just talk about in general as kind of an issue for owner operators, is that owner operators can only take one shipment at a time, and if they're not getting back to wherever these shipments are, and if XYZ broker, or if you, the broker, doesn't have another load for them to come back, it makes it tough for them to kind of get back into the swing of having some of these direct shippers and some of the relationships with brokers. How can you go about kind of tightening those relationships and finding routes that are more tenured with your customers, and into getting some of these carriers back into the right areas on front haul and back haul?
I would say know who you're talking to when you're
Mm.
talking to these carriers, right? Because a lot of
Yeah.
the times you're not talking to the trucking company owner. You're not even talking to the driver, the owner operator, right? You
Right.
are talking to a dispatch service.
Mm.
So one of my strategies is if I get a call on a shipment and it appears to be a dispatch service, which is, from my experience, pretty easy to kind of sniff out these days.
Yeah.
I'll make a call directly to the trucking company. I'll try to talk to the owner. I'll try to talk to the driver. I'll try to talk to the owner operator. We have a conversation. I ask some questions. Are you interested in this load? Why are you interested in this load? Are you in the area? I see you live in Lawrenceville. Are you trying to get there to find another shipment? I mean, it just all starts with knowing who you're talking to from the beginning, and then reaching out to the person running your freight, right? And asking the right questions.
Yeah. I think that's definitely the way to go about it. Is just kind of getting those probing questions and getting to the right person. It's just like when you're trying to get to a shipping manager, right? You have to ask the right questions. You have to know what you're trying to ask to find out how often this guy's going to be in the area. Is it going to be a one-off, or maybe he's here once a month or once a week? And hey, oh great, I run this once a week on Thursdays. Are you here every Thursday? Let's set something up, and then you've got a load every Thursday that you no longer have to worry about or have to think about covering. And same thing with him. He knows, hey, as soon as I get unloaded here, I've got to reload and I can go right back. So it kind of makes those things a little bit easier, and it's really no different than kind of when you're building those relationships with your shipping managers as well.
It's crazy how one little extra step or a few extra steps can take you when it comes to building a relationship with your carrier. And I have
Yeah.
seen it firsthand that brokers don't want to make that extra step. They're fine with the dispatch service sending the rate confirmation, even if the information, the person who's calling your phone is coming from a spam phone number, right? And the email
Right.
does not match FMCSA records whatsoever. To me, I don't understand that. That is a risk I will not take. I've done it before when I
Yeah.
first started, got me into a lot of trouble, right? So it's just take those extra steps, put in the work, ask the right questions, and see what happens. I mean, even if you're just learning, even if you're fresh out of training, right? Have it in your mind to go that extra mile, go that extra step. it will do wonders for your career and for your business and for your profits.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just taking those extra steps to kind of to cover your own ass and to make sure that you're staying safe, you're staying compliant, you're making sure that the carrier is who they say they are, because there are so many different issues that this industry is facing. So there's no reason to be there's no reason to be another statistic in some of these bad numbers, these fraud numbers. We've talked a lot about some of the issues that smaller brokers face, but I want to dive into some of the advantages, right? There are some really good advantages to being a smaller, newer brokerage, a boutique, growing brokerage. So what are some of those advantages to being a new brokerage, to being a small, brokerage owner who doesn't have to kind of deal with some of the bigger management issues within, an established brokerage?
I mean, just the decision making for my customers, right? I work with a lot of project managers. I run a lot of projects. They don't have the time for me to go back and see what my boss will say about this or that, right? Or about a
Right.
rate decrease or an increase or whatnot. All the cards are there, right? Even all the way down to the billing aspect. So, it's just that whole entire transparency is laid out on the table for them. And from my experience, shippers love it. I mean, they know who to call, they know what they're getting, right? There is no buts, ifs, or whens, and I have to double check with my manager type deal. There's none of that. So that's definitely a strong benefit. And on the carrier side, again, I make those decisions. A factoring company doesn't want to work with me. Let me pay you direct. Let me offer you free quick pay. Let me get you some carrier points, right? And I use that to give them access to more freight opportunities. Let me put you on this project, right? So there's a lot more benefits than people, I think, give newer brokers credit for.
Something I've heard a lot about, especially on the freight side, is that phone calls and emails are the future. People don't want to be visited in person anymore. Site visits are dead. I don't agree with that. I mean, I definitely agree that phone calls and emails are probably the most relevant and prevalent because there are a lot of people working remote in 2024. But how are you guys taking kind of that approach in terms of email and phone calls versus kind of some of that in-person prospecting?
So again, I go back to the balance, right? You have to
Yeah.
find the perfect balance and don't rush the process and get freaking creative. Get creative. You cannot, they're not going to pay attention to you if you're saying exactly the same thing as the 20 other brokers that just called them that day, right?
Right.
And one of the ways to do that is you do your research, you stand out by showing them that you care. So I'm a
Mm.
big advocate of slow, meaningful, thoughtful prospecting. I am not an advocate for make 100 cold calls, say the same thing, hopefully a fish will bite. No. You
Yeah.
know, maybe that worked back in 2021, 2018. Sure. I did it. I was on the phone all day, every day for months on end. Um, but to me, the success is found in being creative these days, right? So building up your brand, showing a little bit more of your personal side, using LinkedIn. Such a great
Mm.
advantage. I've been kind of off of it for the last month because I've just been trying to catch up on everything. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I would say. Just get creative and take the easy, not the easy, the hard way, but the slow way. Have a little bit more patience. Hard to, when the audience is probably W-2 employees, right? And
Right.
you've got a manager breathing down your back telling you to make 100, 200 calls. But again, that's why I'm trying to get as far away from that type of model as possible.
Yeah.
And you worked at TQL, so I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Hey, listen, I was making 100 to 200 calls a day, no problem. And that's not, and that's just on the prospecting side. That doesn't have to include any carrier calls I made throughout the day or, check calls or anything like that. So it was a different, it's a different beast. And I agree. I think that there's a good mix and good ways to go out there and get freight. I mean, you have to be creative, and you really have to just kind of take these different alternative approaches. And my biggest thing now in 2024 is social selling and being on LinkedIn and being on social media, being on Twitter, finding your customers, finding them where they are, meeting them where they are. And if they're on LinkedIn a lot, be on LinkedIn, like their stuff, comment on their stuff, show them who you are, but don't be, that annoying person asking, sending the generics, email asking for freight. Hey, we specialize in freight moving all across the 48, moving.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just, we don't need that especially in this industry. There's way too much of it. And it's just, you're going to get shut down right away. Those generic emails don't get you anywhere. And when you show value, you show you've done your research, you show that you care, there's gonna be a lot more opportunities for you. And that's what anyone who's done it in freight, who's had a good career in freight or building big businesses, they all say the same thing. Just do your research, show you care, and you'll end up having a good relationship with the customer.
Yeah. And I mean, even now I get like 4 or 5 emails every morning, and it's from other brokers. And I'm like, had you taken 3 seconds to see that I'm also a broker, that I most likely do not need another broker's help, that I do not double broker, you wouldn't have reached out to me. You wouldn't have wasted that time.
Right.
So, and it's funny that you say that. When I first started, I was like, okay, what approach do I want to take? I need freight. I'm starting ground zero. I have a non-solicit. I got to wait out 18 months, 24 months, however long it is before I can onboard my old customers. Fair, whatever. Got to do it the right legal way. Okay, going to do it. So, and then I started to think, okay, there's 2 routes. I can just get on the phones, call. And I did that for like a day. And then I was like, this doesn't feel right. This makes me feel like, okay, I'm back in my 2018 days, but I've got a little bit more knowledge now. I can take a little bit more time. Yes, I need the freight, but I can take a little bit more time to do a little bit more research. So, prospecting is extremely important. But one of the ways that I was prospecting is actually sending like little LinkedIn videos. So I would say, hey, I saw that you were a logistics manager for ABC company. You guys are like a $50 million company. And I would just make these like really short 30-second videos. And the feedback was phenomenal. They were like, hey, you want to jump on a call? And I'm actually working on a project. Hey, I do have this heavy haul coming through next week. Is this something that you do? I got a lot of people who said, no, I'm not interested, obviously. But you have to try different things and the feedback you get from it, and then just kind of explore that. So and then I stopped doing that and did something else. And another approach of mine is, like you said, visiting customers. I probably spent 2 weeks in my car. I would grab donuts. I drove 3 hours south, to just pop up. And I wasn't, I straight up told them, I said, if you want me to go, I'll go. But listen, I just want to drop these donuts off. I want to tell you a little bit about how I can potentially help. You guys have trucks in here, in and out every day. Did a little bit more research on y'all before I came down here. So it's just, it takes time. It's not easy. It's much easier just to get on the phone and just say a blank script. But I do find it worthwhile to put in the effort and the time.
Something I always go back to is if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? And it's not always easy to build a big brokerage or just to build a boutique brokerage that is focusing on servicing the customers the right way. But I think that you went about it a really cool way of sending, LinkedIn videos in 2024, especially in this industry, because there is so much spam. There's so many scam attempts. I think going and showing that you're a real human right off the jump can open so many doors, because they say, wow, it's not the traditional crap that we're getting. Hey, we specialize in everything, 30,000 trucks across the country. I mean, no one cares anymore. It's so outdated. Yeah. Everyone's gotten that 50,000 times a day. But when you send a quick video, and they say, oh, like I'm more than likely to open a video than I am to just, a generic, a pitch
because
slap.
of effort.
Yeah,
Because the
exactly.
person put in effort, they put in the time.
Yep.
I put in the time. I did my research. I set up my little camera. Like I put my care is there. My heart is there.
Yeah.
So I think that's been a proactive approach to prospecting that's worked out. And, on LinkedIn is it's a jungle, it's crazy. You don't know what you're going to get when you jump on it every day. But there I have so many shippers that I'm connected with, logistics managers, corporate logistics managers, and we talk, but I've never, we just have a general conversation. I don't sit there and I'm like, I specialize in, can you give me a freight opportunity? Can you do this or can you do that? We have a general conversation, and it doesn't seem like they're in a place that they need any help whatsoever, and then I've had conversations, they're like, hey, talk to Doug, here and there, so if you just chill out a little bit and realize that, focus on creating value for yourself first, focus on figuring out what value you can provide, and then, take those next steps versus just being in everyone's face and hopefully a fish will bite type deal.
I always like to take the approach of whether the person on the other end of the phone is going to give me freight or not, I want to become their friend. And the reason is because you never know when that person's going to leave that job, become the decision maker, or have freight opportunities for you. I've had friends who, I have shipper friends who have known what I do, and they say, hey, if my transportation provider, if something ever happened, like, you're who I would call. But it's like the issue is, and I'm not going to try and take a good relationship away. It's just, hey, if I'm here, if you ever need anything, my friend, where I'm at. And it's just, it can be that friendship relationship. I mean, I've had shippers who I've never moved freight with for a year and a half, 2 years. And all of a sudden it's, hey, I just got a new job. Can you give me some quotes on my lanes? I need a face that I can trust in here right off the bat and moving forward. And it's just like, you build those relationships, people will be happy. People will respond well to the kindness and showing that, you do care about what you're doing.
Exactly. That's such a good point. And I've built relationships to a point with a shipper that has never offered me any freight. Well, because they have their own trucks, right?
Yep.
They don't need my help. Maybe once in a blue moon down the road sometime. But what has happened is I built that relationship anyway. Just, you don't have to, not every single day, you don't have to call each other every single day. But I created some trust there. And what he did was pass my name along to a shipper or a friend of his that does have freight to move. And I received an opportunity and ultimately a shipment from his buddy, because people are more willing to trust another person's opinion versus over yourself. Like, you can say, trust me, I'm a great broker. The chances of them believing that are slim to none, but somebody else, their friend or their shipper friend telling them that, your chance of actually receiving an opportunity and them saying, okay, well, if this person trusts him, there must be something more to it.
I've found when you're going out of your way to stay in touch with someone, even when you know that there's next to no opportunity for you to fit in or to get in with them any time in the short term, and you just kind of show that you care and you show that, hey, I'm not doing this to say, hey, I want all your freight today, give me this today. That, you're kind of showing like you're not there for the short term. You're there for their relationship and to really help them. And, when they have those opportunities, when friends have opportunities, when they have, whether it be service providers or anyone who just says, hey, do you know anyone who can help us on this lane? They're far more likely to say, hey, I know Krystina can help you on this. I don't use her a ton, unfortunately, because, we have our own fleet. But whenever we do have something come up, we always give it to her, and she's fantastic. And it just builds, like you said, it builds that trust so much faster. You're going to get those. You're probably going to get that person's shipment right away because of that recommendation. Even if you're a little bit higher, they might, even question it and say, hey, why is this guy so much cheaper than Krystina? Let's give it to Krystina because she probably knows what she's doing, because Bill said she's fantastic, so let's give it to her. I've had those exact conversations, and it's just like it's when you have that trust, when you have those opportunities, they go a lot further.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer in not writing anyone off,
Yeah.
Working at a W-2, you see, oh, this guy ain't got no freight. I'm F him,
Yep.
and I'm like, no, try to build somewhat of a relation. Be there if anything comes up. Don't just write somebody off
Right.
just because of your own assumptions, just because you feel like you're wasting your time because you can't make a dollar immediately, right? Chase
Right.
the vision, not the dollar.
Well, you never know when someone's operations may change a little bit too, right? They may be an all LTL operation today, but they may have a customer who says, "Hey, we need 30 times the volume because we're now selling out of this product constantly out of all of our stores, and this could go from all LTL to, hey, we need 5 full truckloads a week. Who do we go to?" And it's like,
That happened to me.
Yep.
That exact situation happened to me. We had a conversation. They were moving a lot of volume with a very popular LTL provider. My rates were higher. They were. Yep. But the service, they were like, I can't keep calling. And then she's all of a sudden out on vacation and I have no idea who I'm supposed to get in touch with. And I'm going through 3 different phone numbers. So I was like, that problem is non-existent with me. My phone is my right arm. You call me, I'm going to answer whether you have a shipment for me or not, so, and then that turned into a little bit of volume, growing that trust. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, I need 5, I think it was like 10 truckloads in one day. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
right.
This is phenomenal, but unexpected. But that's another reason why you don't write people off and you don't write shippers off just because they're not bringing in 20K a month immediately, right? It's a process. Exactly. And our industry is very fluid. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of variables. And so
as a smaller brokerage, I want your opinion on this because I think it's such a polarizing topic in freight right now is AI. How do you think that, you can potentially utilize AI, whether that's now if you are utilizing it or potentially in the future for, potentially, helping position yourself against some of the bigger brokers to help you, win more freight, be more timely with, some of your bids? Or are you guys just trying to take that, pure human approach and say, hey, listen, we know that a lot of these other guys are taking the AI approach, but we're sticking with the human approach. What are you guys doing in terms of that?
I think it's just depending on how you look at it, right? So which avenue do we want to take with AI? I'd love to see more of a freight rating AI-backed software, right? But I think we're at a point in our industry with AI where it's very trial-based. We're still not quite entirely sure how we can use it. And is it for the better or is it a bit of a waste of time? So, I'm curious to see what the bigger brokers are going to do, what the bigger brokerages are going to do with it. And then just kind of piggyback on that. I'm all about using technology as an advantage. I believe it's great. I mean, the faster I can get a quote, the more accurate, the better. Obviously, it's not only helping myself, it's helping my customers and my carriers. And I want to be, I want to be on top of it for them. Right. So it's like, I'm open to it. I want to use AI. Just not quite sure where the success with it is quite yet. I have to see 3-4 years down the road. What do you think?
That's a good question. The other day, or this is a couple weeks ago now, C.H. Robinson slashed 50% of their U.S. sales force, and then 2 weeks later announced an AI leveraged load matching platform, which kind of is one of the reasons they got rid of their salespeople, or at least they claim that it's not. But I mean, they released it literally 2 weeks after they did it, and it's literally designed to provide carriers with real time and customized recommendations. So they got rid of, I guess, more of the carrier sales role with this tool. I'm very mixed, right? There's so many different tools that are coming out. It's so I think it's kind of tough to say what tools make the most sense for me as X broker, a small broker, a medium sized broker, and a large broker. I think it just comes down to what the brokerage is doing and how they specialize in things. There's going to be a lot of tools that don't survive the next, like you said, 2 or 3 years. So I would just kind of take them, sparingly. See the tools that have a lot of hype, see what people are saying about them, find the real reviews of some of these products, and then see how you can implement them into your operations and if it makes sense. But if it doesn't make sense, I mean, if you're a 1-person or 3-person operation who can handle doing things without AI, that's fantastic. But if you're gotten to the point where, hey, we can't hire anyone else yet, but we could really utilize some AI tools to help us with going through our emails or getting some of these load details from our email into our TMS and things like that, so it's not such a rigorous process of us copying and pasting 15 or 20 different loads and load details. I think that's where it can be utilized more, but I think that it's just one of those trial and error things. Like you said, it just kind of comes down to what the business needs are and kind of what tools are available when you're looking for them.
Yeah. And I think that a big portion of it is don't necessarily replace what you have now with
Yeah.
it. Maybe take more time and use it as an advantage, speed things up. But what, CHR did, I not sure where they're headed with that. I'm not sure if this was a plan in the works. Maybe they did use AI for several years, but then again, I mean, how could they have? So,
Right.
but those bigger companies that's kind of what they're known for, is a very big hire, fire approach. And it's worked for them. So why not keep doing it? Right.
Yeah. You're spot on. If it works for them and it's continuously working for them and they can utilize AI to get rid of some people, and then if they need people in 6 months, well, they can bring in another hiring class and promote people. And it's just kind of the unfortunate very cyclical nature of the freight industry right now.
There has to be a consequence for that, though. At some point down the line, it's a big part of our industry.
My
Right?
question is, who does the consequence come from, right? I mean, us as brokers, me being a previous broker, when we leave these brokerages to kind of get out from the thumb of them, we're punished by, hey, there's a non-solicit, a non-compete, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, whatever it may be. And then we're kind of out of the game. The shippers really don't care. Some shippers don't care. Some do. But a lot of shippers don't care. They're just going to go with, whoever's convenient or wherever it may be. So I'm not sure kind of where that consequence is, unless, there really is, if we actually are able to get rid of the non-compete. I think that's when there's going to be some actual consequences for brokerages doing that, because they're just not going to, I think that the hiring tactics of some of these brokerages they're getting well known kind of in the job marketplace. So it's getting a lot harder. Exactly. So, you could hide behind it in 2010 when there wasn't Glassdoor and video reviews and all this other stuff. But we're just to a point where you just can't hide the negative. You can Google C.H. Robinson, TQL, any big broker. You can look up the good reviews, the bad reviews, and you can kind of figure it out. So,
Yep. I saw just probably a few months back where it was a brokerage that recently laid off like 100 something people. And then a month later, they were back on LinkedIn like, hey, we're hiring for our office. And I think somebody commented, didn't you just fire like 100 people a couple months ago? Or those people
yeah.
are going to get that opportunity as well. So I think that I think down the line, we're going to see more and more of a fragmented type environment where people like me who have been under the thumb for the last 6 years are saying, hey, no more, and I no more so much that I don't even want to be an agent. I want to start fresh. I want to do it the hard way. And that's another goal of mine down the line, is to show people this is what you need to be able to make this work. Don't just go out on your own and fail miserably.
Yeah.
Get the resources together, plan ahead, get with somebody that can be a mentor to you, not somebody that just wants for you to work for them for the rest of your life. So, it's a long-term goal, but it's one of the reasons I started my brokerage. So I'm super excited about it.
Krystina, last question I got for you before we wrap today is what are you most bullish on for the rest of 2024?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't think we're going to see, I don't think it's going to be pretty. I don't think it's going to be a market turnaround. I really don't. I think we are going to stay in the slumps for another 6 months or so, at least. I
Yeah.
think there's going to be volatility in some parts of the area. I think that there are still opportunities, right? I wouldn't be here if there weren't, but I wouldn't sit on this market and wait for it to come save me. I don't think that's a great approach. What do you think? Are you bullish?
Uh, I tend to be bullish. I mean, I look at so many different reports and so many different
Right.
outlooks every day. I don't know where my head's at anymore. I'm kind of just where the data's at, and it's saying that we're in a very slight upward trajectory, and I don't think I'm kind of on your track where I don't think it's going to be very pretty. And if you're waiting for the market to turn, and that's what you're holding your hat on, don't hold your breath. You'll turn very blue and fall to the ground, because it's like you said. I don't think we're in for a soft recovery or anything. I think we have a
A
much
sudden
longer,
recovery, like
yeah,
we
sudden recovery.
intended to be.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're still, I still think we have too much capacity. I think there's still too many brokerages. I think that rates are just where they are right now. I mean, they're kind of at a point where they were pre-COVID. So, I mean, I don't really see them going much higher right now. But in the other turn, right now we've got the potential strikes with the at the ports with the ILA. So it could really be, it could turn into something much different. In 3 months, when freight isn't moving into some of those ports and they're coming into different ports, and now things are getting congested in different areas, and people are bringing in a lot more inventory than they had planned, because who knows how long a strike could last. There could be a lot of different factors, but overall I'm kind of on where you are. Is I think it's going to be still a long road ahead.
Right. I feel like as soon as we're seeing some sort of new data, and it's kind of a sigh of relief. Okay, the rates are
Yeah.
going up, right? We saw that a few months ago, and my thinking was, well, this could just be seasonality, right? I mean, we could
Yeah.
just be sitting on what has happened every year. It's just we're so hopeful that this is it, this is the market turn, but then it went back down. But like I said, I do think there's going to be volatilities before we're officially in that turn. And I mean, if we had a crystal ball, we'd probably make a lot more money than we do, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm putting my money on, is the fact that but also at the same time, I'm not I plan for the worst. I always have. You have to protect your customers and your carriers. So
And the tough thing is right now, if we start to look at volume trends and rates and things like that, we also have, we have Labor Day coming up in 3.5 weeks. So that's going to artificially push up some of these rates and some of the potential volumes that are out there. So, we may not really see if there is a true, if volumes maybe continue to rise and continue to hold after that point, maybe we'll see a little bit of a correction or a little bit of rates start to climb. But again, I'm with you. I just don't think, I think we're kind of past the seasonality point of it, where if rates were going to really drive, they would have happened already. I think that the kind of Christmas rush, it's on the ocean already, or it's already kind of getting here. We're pretty close. We're like 90, 120-ish days to Christmas. So there's not much time when it comes to those kind of things. I mean, we say August, but yeah, I mean, the end of the year is right here. So a lot of this stuff is already arriving. It's already on ships. So I'm not sure that we're going to see that sudden correction that everyone is hoping for.
Yep, or we might both be wrong. So I guess we'll have to look and we'll have to see and
Exactly.
find out, right?
Listen, we'll look back at this in 6 months or a year. We'll see who's right, who's wrong. What
Yeah.
we could look so stupid in 3 months, and we could look we could look like geniuses. So, Krystina, I really appreciate you coming on today. I really appreciate you taking your time. I know how busy you are. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, want to learn more, or they just want to, follow your journey, how can they find you guys online?
Sure. So we have a LinkedIn page. Booker Transport Solutions. Feel free to reach out to me, DM me, text me, call me, or maybe don't text me or call me if I don't know you. But Exactly. Feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn.
Awesome. I will have Krystina's, all her links, and for Booker Transport Solutions all in the comments or in the podcast description, wherever you're listening today. If you guys like today's show, please give it a like and review. It does help us out a ton. And don't forget, we do drop 3 weekly newsletters at Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at ThinkFreight.io. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Don't forget to think freight.